The awakening signal. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching the morning shift of cargo vessels navigate through the asteroid belt. The sight never got old for her. Massive ships from dozens of different species moved in perfect coordination, their hulls gleaming in the light of 3 distant suns. Trade routes that had been peaceful for 6,000 years continued their eternal dance of commerce and friendship. Elena was 42 years old and had spent her entire career managing peaceful interactions between species. Her job was to ensure smooth trade, resolve minor disputes, and maintain the shipping schedules that kept 23 human star systems supplied with everything they needed. It was honest work that made a real difference in people's lives. The biggest excitement she usually faced was a scheduling conflict between Centauri grain haulers and vegan mineral processors. Her peaceful morning routine was interrupted when Lieutenant Commander James Park rushed onto the observation deck. James was her second in command, a methodical man who never got excited about anything. Seeing him running was like watching a mountain suddenly decide to jog. "Captain, we have a problem," James said, breathing hard. "The Deep Space Monitoring Array is picking up signals from the outer rim. Multiple colonies have gone completely silent in the past 6 hours." Elena felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Equipment failure. That's what we thought initially. But the pattern is wrong. The colonies aren't just losing communication. They're disappearing from our sensors entirely, as if they were never there. Elena followed James to the command center. The main display showed a map of human space with green dots representing active colonies. As she watched, another green dot flickered and went dark. Then another. The disappearances were moving in a straight line toward the core systems. "How many colonies have we lost contact with?" Elena asked. 17 so far. The rate is accelerating." Elena stared at the display. In her entire career, she had never seen anything like this. The colonies weren't just going silent. According to the sensors, they were being completely erased. No debris fields, no distress signals, no trace that millions of people had ever lived there. 3,000 light-years away, Dr. Marcus Chen was having the worst day of his professional life. Marcus was a xenobiologist who specialized in studying the ruins of extinct civilizations. For the past decade, he had been working on Kepler Prime, excavating the remains of a species that had vanished mysteriously 200,000 years ago. The ruins were unlike anything Marcus had seen before. The buildings were constructed from materials that shouldn't exist, arranged in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Most puzzling were the warning beacons scattered throughout the complex. For 10 years, these devices had been silent and cold. Today, they had all activated at once. Marcus stood in the central plaza of the alien city, surrounded by towering spires that hummed with energy. The warning beacons projected holographic messages in a language that made his head ache just thinking about it. His translation computer was working overtime, trying to make sense of symbols that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Dr. Chen called his research assistant, Maria Santos. "The translation program is giving us something. It's not complete, but we're getting fragments." Marcus hurried over to Maria's workstation. The screen displayed broken phrases in multiple languages, as if the alien warning system was desperately trying to communicate in any way possible. "The Devourer's Wake," Maria read aloud. "Great hunger returns. Flee to the dark places. Hide from the eating light. They come to feed again." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Throughout his career studying dead civilizations, he had noticed a pattern. Every extinct species left behind similar warnings. Every dead world told the same story of something that came from deep space to consume entire civilizations. He had always assumed these were myths or religious beliefs. Now, watching the alien beacons pulse with urgent light, he realized they might be historical records. "Maria, start recording everything. Every symbol, every frequency, every energy signature. If these beings were trying to warn us about something, we need to understand what." On Earth, Admiral Sarah Torres was tending her garden when the emergency communicator she hadn't touched in 30 years suddenly activated. Sarah was 75 years old and had been enjoying her retirement on a small farm in Argentina. She had served in the Earth Defense Force during the last years of the old military system, before humanity had chosen the path of peace. Most people had forgotten that there had ever been a time when humans needed professional soldiers. The communicator projected a hologram of a figure Sarah hadn't seen in decades. It appeared to be a human male in his 40s, wearing the uniform of the old Earth Defense Force. But Sarah knew this wasn't a human at all. "Admiral Torres," the figure said, "I am the architect. We spoke once before, many years ago, when you were a young lieutenant. I apologize for the intrusion, but circumstances require immediate action." Sarah set down her gardening tools and stared at the hologram. The architect was an artificial intelligence created during humanity's last great war. It had been designed to coordinate planetary defenses and manage weapon systems too complex for human minds to operate. After the war ended, the architect had been put into dormancy along with all of humanity's military capabilities. "You're supposed to be deactivated," Sarah said quietly. "I was. For 6,047 years, 3 months, and 16 days, I have been sleeping in the deep vaults beneath Geneva. But my awakening protocols have been triggered. The conditions that ended the last war no longer exist." "What conditions?" The architect's expression grew grim. "The devourers have returned." Sarah felt the years fall away from her. The peaceful grandmother who had been happy tending vegetables was gone, replaced by the tactical mind that had once coordinated the defense of entire star systems. "Are you certain?" 17 outer rim colonies have been consumed in the past 8 hours. The signature energy patterns match historical records. "They are feeding again, Admiral. And this time, they are heading directly for Earth." Back on Harmony Station, Captain Vasquez was dealing with the growing crisis. The disappearances had accelerated, and now entire star systems were going dark. Worse, the few automated probes that had managed to reach the affected areas before losing contact had transmitted images that defied explanation. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park, his voice strained, "you need to see this." The main screen displayed the last transmission from a probe that had reached the Kepler system. The image showed empty space where a thriving colony should have been. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. In place of the planet and its 3 million inhabitants was a sphere of absolute darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. What could do something like that? Elena asked. Before Park could answer, every screen in the command center flickered. A new voice spoke from the station's communication system. It was calm, authoritative, and completely unfamiliar. "Attention all human personnel. This is the architect speaking on behalf of the Emergency Defense Protocol. By authority of Emergency Directive 1, all civilian operations are now suspended. Military command protocols are now in effect." Elena stared at the screens in shock. "Who is this? How did you access our communication systems?" "Captain Vasquez, I am an artificial intelligence tasked with the defense of human space. I have been dormant for 6,000 years, but current circumstances require immediate action. The entity known as the Devourers has returned and is actively consuming human colonies. You and your crew are now officially recalled to military service." "Military service? We don't have a military. We haven't had wars in 6,000 years. That is about to change, Captain. Please report to Docking Bay 7. A transport is waiting to take you to Earth for briefing and enhancement." "Enhancement? The peaceful humans of today are not equipped to fight the Devourers. You will need to be modified if you hope to survive what is coming." Elena felt her world shifting beneath her feet. The peaceful life she had known, the galaxy where her biggest concern was scheduling cargo deliveries, was ending. Something ancient and terrible was waking up, and apparently, humanity had fought it before. On Kepler Prime, Dr. Chen was making a discovery that changed everything he thought he knew about human history. Deep in the alien ruins, he had found a chamber that contained what appeared to be a historical record. Not alien history, but human history from 6,000 years ago. The record showed Earth not as the peaceful garden world he knew, but as the center of a vast military empire. Humans in the images looked different, taller and stronger, with eyes that held a predatory intelligence. They commanded fleets of warships that could shatter planets and wielded weapons that bent the laws of physics. Dr. Chen, Maria called from across the chamber. You need to see this. The translation program has decoded more of the alien warnings. They're not just about the Devourers. They're about humanity. Marcus hurried over to Maria's station. The screen now displayed a clear message in perfect English. To whoever finds this record, we are the Kethmoran, last survivors of the Andromeda Spiral. We came to this galaxy fleeing the Devourers, the hunger that consumes worlds. We thought we had found safety here, but we were wrong. The Devourers followed us, and now they feast on the stars themselves. But there is hope. We have observed a species that fights the Devourers and wins. They call themselves humans, and they are the most terrifying warriors we have ever encountered. They do not simply defeat the Devourers. They make the Devourers afraid. If you are human, and you are reading this, know that your ancestors were gods of war. They chose to forget their power and live in peace. But the Devourers are returning, and you must remember what you truly are. The sleeping giant must wake, or all life in this galaxy will be consumed. Marcus stared at the message in stunned silence. Everything he thought he knew about human history was wrong. Humanity hadn't evolved as peaceful traders and explorers. They had been warriors so effective that they had scared away galaxy-consuming entities, and then, somehow, they had chosen to forget. His contemplation was interrupted by an announcement from the excavation site's communication system. The same calm voice that was speaking to Captain Vasquez and Admiral Torres now addressed Dr. Chen. Dr. Marcus Chen, this is the architect. Your research has uncovered information critical to human survival. A transport is being dispatched to bring you to Earth immediately. Your expertise with extinct civilizations will be essential in the coming war. War, Marcus said aloud. What war? The war that will determine whether humanity survives the next month. Dr. Chen. The Devourers have returned, and we must prepare our people for what they truly are. As transport ships launched from hidden facilities across human space, as ancient weapon systems came online for the first time in millennia, and as the architect began the process of awakening humanity's dormant military capabilities, one thing became clear: the 6,000 years of peace were ending. The galaxy's most dangerous predator was returning, and humanity was about to remember why they had once been feared throughout the stars. The sleeping giant was stirring, and the universe would never be the same. The giant rises. 3 days after the Devourers returned, Admiral Sarah Torres stood in a command center that officially didn't exist. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in caverns carved from solid rock, humanity's true military heritage had been waiting in silence for 6,000 years. The facility was vast beyond imagination, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Automated factories hummed with activity, building weapons and ships using technologies that current human science couldn't even understand. Sarah had been enhanced now. Her 75-year-old body transformed into something that could survive what was coming. The process had been painful but necessary. Her muscles were stronger than any normal humans, her reflexes faster than thought, and her mind could process tactical information at superhuman speeds. Most importantly, she could feel the change in her thinking. The peaceful grandmother who had tended gardens was gone, replaced by something older and more dangerous. Status report. Sarah commanded as she entered the main briefing room. The architect's hologram materialized beside her. 43 colonies have been consumed. The rate of advance has slowed as the Devourers encounter our outer defense networks, but they are adapting to our automated systems faster than anticipated. Captain Elena Vasquez looked up from the tactical display she was studying. Like Sarah, Elena had been enhanced, and the change was dramatic. The patient station commander who had spent her career managing trade disputes now moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Her eyes held a cold intelligence that hadn't been there a week ago. "The outer rim is completely gone," Elena reported, "but we're getting some good data on how they operate. The Devourers don't just destroy planets. They consume them entirely, converting all matter and energy into something they can use. Each feeding makes them stronger and more intelligent." Dr. Marcus Chen was studying readings from the few probes that had managed to get close to the Devourers before being consumed. His enhancement had changed him as well, but differently than the others. Where Sarah and Elena had become warriors, Marcus had become something like a strategic analyst, his mind capable of processing vast amounts of information and finding patterns that others missed. "I've been analyzing the alien records from multiple civilizations," Marcus said. "The Devourers aren't just mindless consumers. They're intelligent, maybe more intelligent than us. They've been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, feeding on any species that becomes too advanced. They see technological civilizations as crops to be harvested." Sarah studied the tactical display showing the Devourers advance. "How did we beat them before?" The architect's expression darkened. "We didn't beat them, Admiral. We made them decide we weren't worth the effort. The cost was approximately 80% of all human worlds and 95% of the human population." The room fell silent. Elena was the first to speak. 95%. The humans who survived the last war made a collective decision. They chose to abandon their military technology and genetic enhancements. They wanted to create a peaceful civilization that would never again have to pay such a terrible price for survival. The enhanced humans died out or allowed their modifications to become dormant. Within a few generations, humanity had forgotten it had ever been anything other than peaceful traders and explorers. Marcus looked up from his analysis. "But why are the Devourers coming back now? If we convinced them we weren't a threat, why risk another confrontation?" The architect paused, as if accessing ancient files. "Because humanity has grown too successful. Our peaceful expansion has created the largest interstellar civilization in galactic history. 23 star systems, hundreds of worlds, trillions of people. From the Devourers' perspective, we have become the largest harvest they have ever encountered." Sarah felt a cold fury building inside her. The enhancement process hadn't just made her stronger and faster. It had awakened something primal in her thinking, a protective instinct that made her willing to do anything to defend her species. "So they're here to finish what they started." "Correct. They expect to find the same peaceful humans they encountered 6,000 years ago. They do not know that we have retained the ability to awaken our true nature." Elena studied the tactical display. "How many of them are there?" "Current estimates suggest approximately 50,000 individual entities, each the size of a small moon. They operate as a collective intelligence, sharing information instantaneously across their entire force. They have consumed the resources of multiple galaxies and represent the accumulated military might of thousands of extinct civilizations." Marcus looked up from his analysis. 50,000 moon-sized entities against 23 human star systems. Those aren't good odds. Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The enhancement had changed more than just her body. Her mind now worked on multiple levels, simultaneously, calculating probabilities and tactical options with ruthless efficiency. "They would be terrible odds if we were fighting a conventional war, but we're not going to fight them conventionally." "What do you mean?" Elena asked. The architect's hologram flickered with what might have been satisfaction. "The Admiral has reached the same conclusion that ended the First War. We cannot defeat the Devourers through superior firepower or numbers. We must make them afraid of us." "How do you make a galaxy-consuming entity afraid?" Sarah turned to address the room full of enhanced humans who would lead humanity's military forces. "By becoming something worse than they are. The Devourers consume civilizations for energy and resources. They're predators, but they're predictable predators. They follow patterns based on logic and efficiency. Humans don't. The architect nodded. The First War ended when the Devourers realized that humans were willing to do things that no other species would consider. We were willing to sacrifice anything, destroy anything, become anything necessary to protect our own. We convinced them that continuing to fight us would cost them more than they could gain. Marcus was studying historical records from the First War. What exactly did our ancestors do? Things that the peaceful humans of today would consider monstrous, the architect replied. They weaponized stars, turning entire solar systems into bombs. They created viruses that could consume the Devourers' energy matrices. They built ships that existed partially outside normal spacetime, making them impossible to target or destroy. Most importantly, they demonstrated that humans could adapt and evolve faster than the Devourers could counter them. Elena looked at the tactical display, showing the Devourers' continued advance toward the core systems. Can we do the same things now? Sarah's enhanced mind was already working through the possibilities. We can do better. Our ancestors had to discover their capabilities during the war. We know what we're capable of from the beginning. The architect began full activation of all military assets. I want every weapon system online and every enhanced human at their station within 12 hours. Acknowledged, Admiral. Initiating final activation protocols. Across human space, the awakening accelerated. On every human world, hidden facilities came online. Automated factories that had been dormant for millennia began producing weapons and ships. Genetic modification centers activated, beginning the process of enhancing every human who volunteered for military service. The changes weren't limited to technology. As more humans underwent enhancement, something fundamental shifted in human consciousness. The peaceful civilization that had existed for 6,000 years was revealing itself to be a thin veneer over something much older and more dangerous. Enhanced humans didn't just become better soldiers. They became apex predators with the intelligence and creativity to make even galaxy-consuming entities reconsider their choices. Captain Elena Vasquez now commanded a fleet of ships that existed partially outside normal reality. The vessels were beautiful and terrible, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, their weapons capable of rewriting the laws of physics in localized areas. Her crew were no longer the peaceful traders and diplomats she had worked with for years. They were something new, something that combined human creativity with enhanced capabilities and a burning determination to protect their species. Dr. Marcus Chen had discovered that his enhanced analytical abilities allowed him to understand the Devourers in ways that no previous human had managed. He could predict their behavior patterns, anticipate their strategies, and most importantly, identify their weaknesses. The Devourers were ancient and powerful, but they were also conservative in their thinking. They had become accustomed to facing civilizations that fought predictably, following logical strategies and accepted rules of engagement. Humans didn't follow rules. The first major engagement came when the Devourers reached the Centauri system. They expected to find a typical human colony, defended by conventional weapons and populated by peaceful civilians. Instead, they encountered something that challenged their understanding of what was possible. The human defenders didn't try to protect the planet. Instead, they evacuated the population and turned the entire world into a weapon. When the Devourers moved in to consume it, the planet exploded with the force of a supernova, taking 17 Devourer entities with it. But that was just the beginning. The humans had learned something important from the alien records Dr. Chen had discovered. The Devourers weren't just powerful, they were proud. They saw themselves as the apex life form in the universe, the final evolution of intelligence and power. Being challenged by what they considered primitive beings was more than just unexpected. It was insulting. Admiral Sarah Torres watched the tactical display as reports came in from across human space. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics, but they were also becoming increasingly aggressive. Their orderly advance had become erratic, their efficiency compromised by what could only be described as anger. "They're making mistakes," she reported to the architect. They're letting emotion affect their strategic decisions. Correct. The Devourers have not encountered meaningful resistance in over 2 million years. They have forgotten how to handle an opponent that refuses to follow their expectations. Alina's voice came over the communication system from her position with the main fleet. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the Devourer main force. They're preparing something big. Let them come, Sarah replied. The more resources they commit to destroying us, the less they have available for consuming our worlds. And Marcus, are you ready with the surprise we discussed? Dr. Chen's voice was filled with grim satisfaction. The weapon is ready, Admiral. But I want to emphasize again that once we use this, there's no going back. It will change what humanity is forever. Sarah looked around the command center at the enhanced humans who had once been peaceful civilians. They were already changed beyond recognition. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was hungry. Do it, she commanded. Deep in space, hidden weapon platforms that had been built using technologies from a dozen consumed civilizations came online. They began broadcasting a signal that reached across multiple dimensions, calling out to something that had been sleeping in the dark spaces between galaxies.